Hello there, you are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the Saturday's front pages as they arrive. It is time to see what's making the headlines with broadcaster and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng and the Daily Mirror's political editor John Stevens. They'll be with us from now right up until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of the front pages for you now. Learn work skills or face benefits cut, jobless told, reads the front of the Times, as it looks at new plans to tackle unemployment. The Mirror leads on comments made by missing dog walker Nicola Bulley's partner. The headline, "I'm certain Nicola didn't fall in." This same story covers the front of the Daily Mail as well. "I'm 100% convinced." Comments from Nicola Bulley's partner is also the lead on the Telegraph. And the same again on the front of the Sun. Its headline, "Someone local knows something." The Guardian reports that the Treasury is considering a plan to massively expand free childcare to 1- and 2-year-olds in England. An interview with the Education Secretary leads the Financial Times over the number of international students studying in the UK. The Eye Weekend continues its UK-wide campaign on river conditions. Its headline, "Save Our Rivers. Only 6% will be healthy as UK's water firms pump more raw sewage." "Tell us, Harry, are you coming to Coronation?" reads the front of the Daily Express. And the sun is falling to bits, reads the front of the Daily Star. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Anita Boateng and John Stevens. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the earthquakes in Turkey. Just looking at the front page of the FT. I sigh just because the picture that's alongside the article is just... well, it's just indescribable grief, isn't it? This is in Adiyaman and families having to dig the bodies of loved ones from the rubble before actually helping to dig their graves. Anita.
Yes, I mean, the images that we have been seeing for the past week have been absolutely harrowing. And what's really coming through in some of the coverage is that there's a lot of anger in Turkey. Like, they do know that they are susceptible to earthquakes, and obviously some of the older buildings haven't been made as kind of earthquake proof, but a lot of people in communities have had to essentially provide their own food and water. And in this instance, you've got those devastating images of people having to dig their own graves. The FT coverage also says there's a 50-person queue to get into a cemetery. So there really is just an awful loss of life that we're seeing in Turkey. And just one other note for Syria, where the UN has said that it thinks that 5 million people are potentially displaced, and obviously we can't get into Syria to see the extent of the damage, but that is a country that has been riven and ravaged by so many crises that it's hard to imagine the scale of what they are going through too.
Yes, and John, as Anita mentioned there, a lot of the grief turning to anger because of the state of the buildings and the fact that they collapse so easily and not earthquake proof, and some even today suggesting that it amounts to murder.
Yeah, and you look at the death toll, I mean, 22,000 people, that just feels completely unbelievable. We're used to big terror attacks where, the Paris attacks, that was 200 people. We're used to kind of people dying, all sorts of kind of things around the world. But 22,000 people is just such a vast number. And that picture on the front page of the FT, as you say, I mean, you just cannot describe the grief that is so clearly on their faces. But there is one small glimmer of hope that is talked about in that FT piece, and that is that they are still finding some people alive. The British search team has been helping using dogs to try and find people who are still alive under the rubble. They were tweeting earlier today how they'd rescued a 2-year-old girl. That, yeah, it is an absolutely grim story, But there are these incredible tales of people who 4 days on from this terrible earthquake are still being plucked alive from the rubble.
Yes, and I suppose although we've seen in our coverage that the emergency services, the first responders are exhausted, they will continue to search for people because, you know, there are these glimmer of hopes when they're able to bring life from within the rubble. Let us have a look at the Mirror, and this is a story that's on many of the front pages. We'll look at the Mirror first of all. The headline, "I'm certain Nicola didn't fall in." This is Nicola Bulley's partner who's given an interview, and he says his personal view is that she absolutely, categorically did not fall into the river. Anita.
Yes, yet another grim story for Friday night. So we all know what happened, which was she seems to have disappeared walking her dog next to the River Wear on the 27th of January. And in the reports that we've seen in the Mirror there, the partner has said that he's sort of been shocked when he saw sort of how shallow the river was, and is now saying that he feels that this is not what happened. And the entire family, they've been holding vigils. They're clearly completely distraught and also baffled by what may have happened. They've also got reports in the papers of her partner saying that she would not have left her dog. And he's also sort of raised the question of whether someone somewhere might know something about what's happened to her.
Yeah, that is the headline for The Sun, John, that someone local knows something, and he's saying that he wants everywhere searched thoroughly, not just the river, every inch. He wants to know that it has been gone through with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, and this interview that he has given, I mean, it's really hard what he's going through. There is such a mystery that we're 2 weeks on now and we don't seem really to be any closer to working out what exactly has happened to Nicola Bulley. But he's saying that it's such a small village. She spent 12 years doing this exact same dog route, the same paths. You see the same people every day. I know that as a dog walker, you see the same people in the park as you see on other days. You see the same other dog walkers. And so he's saying that if there was someone else around, someone on the village would surely have recognised them and thought, you're not from around here, I've not seen your face before. And so he's just kind of pleading with the people in the local area, saying surely someone somewhere must know something. But it's just clearly quite strange what's happened. And you can see why he's questioning whether she did go in the river or not. You know, things like her phone being found on the bench. We know that most people are glued to their phones the whole time, that if you fell in the river, your phone would go with you. The fact that the dog, Willow, that was with her, that she hadn't gone into the river, it was dry, the dog, suggests that you can see why they're questioning this theory about did she fall in the river or not, whether that is the case. But yeah, he clearly wants the police to do absolutely everything they can do. He used the phrase that he said, we can have no stone left unturned. They just want the police to kind of widen the search, make sure that every caravan, every building, every outbuilding has been searched. That it just seems strange that 2 weeks on, there is kind of no real clues as to what happened. And you can see why he's just desperate for the police to kind of turn up some indication of what exactly has gone on.
Absolutely, it's the not knowing that's so agonising for the family. Let's turn to the Times and this story about benefit claimants who'll be required to spend a fortnight on an intensive programme designed to get them back into work, or they could risk losing universal credit payments. Anita.
So I'm a former work and pension special advisor, so I remember these policy initiatives very well. So the details of this story are very interesting. You've got essentially, there's something that happens in welfare where when you have been out of a job for about 3 months, that's sort of the critical period where it becomes more and more difficult for you to get back into the workforce. So this initiative is, that's been worked up and piloted in the Department for Work and Pensions, is essentially about that. After that 3-month period, can you have 2 weeks of an intensive daily kind of face-to-face program that will help you kind of get back into work? So there is a suggestion that after, you've been out of work for 3 months or more, if you kind of repeatedly refuse to attend, you could lose your payments. But it feels like it's a lot more kind of carrot than stick. So they're piloting this, according to the story in the Times, in 4 different areas. And obviously, you know, at the moment, unemployment is not particularly high, but 1.2 million people is a lot of people, given how much demand there is for workers in the UK right now. So anything that the department can do to get more people into work, to me, is to the good.
The pilot areas are Crawley in West Sussex, Pontefract in West Yorkshire, Patrick in Glasgow and Colville in Leicestershire. Does it strike you as a good idea, John?
I think it depends on the quality of these courses. If it is 2 weeks of tailored help, that it's not just a one-size-fits-all thing, it's not a box-ticking exercise where they're truly looking at these people, what skills they have, what jobs they'd be interested in, and helping them into jobs, helping them with their applications, working out what could you do to kind of freshen up your skills. If it is something like that, then that would be helpful, I think, for a lot of people. However, if it is a low quality thing that's quickly rolled out across the country, where it isn't kind of specialised and customised to the people who are needing the help, then that seems a bit of a pointless exercise. And you can see why you might end up with problems down the road. People saying, well, I might actually be better off spending 2 weeks going through job search applications myself, doing things, going to interviews, rather being stuck going to a course which may not be the best thing for them to do.
We shall see how the pilots progress. John and Anita, for the moment, thank you. We're going to take a break. Coming up, tell us, Harry, are you coming to the coronation? That's the front of the Daily Express. Stay with us for more on that and other stories. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, broadcaster and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng and the Daily Mirror's political editor John Stevens. Welcome back to both of you. Let us take a look at the Telegraph and a story that's been out of the headlines for a wee while. Partygate, do you remember that? Well, according to this report, the inquiry might be scuppered because witnesses are being told that they will not be able to remain anonymous, Anita.
Yes, this is an interesting little return of Partygate. So the Telegraph is reporting that the investigation into whether Boris Johnson knowingly misled the House of Commons into what he knew about parties going on in Downing Street is continuing. And there is this indication that the witnesses, unless in exceptional circumstances, will not be able to remain anonymous. So there's some suggestion here that witnesses have therefore been reluctant to come forward with WhatsApp messages and other evidence. And some are saying, well, I no longer use my government phone, etc., etc. So this investigation is supposed to move to televised hearings in about March. And the Telegraph thinks that there's going to be a report in July. So there's some suggestion that this is going to be somewhat stymied by this condition of anonymity being removed except in exceptional circumstances.
Yes, John, the paper's reporting that actually the investigation is struggling to prove his guilt. Could this all be thrown out, do you think?
I think that you can see why people might be put off giving kind of written testimony if they're told that they'll be named. One of the quotes in the Telegraph talks about how it feels like turning on the mafia, kind of giving evidence against Boris Johnson. But, you know, it's interesting that they're trying to get hold of emails and WhatsApp messages. And that is something that you could easily hand over, kind of cache of messages of WhatsApp groups, what was being said by different aides in Number 10. Could easily hand that over to the investigation and not be named by them. And I think that may be the sort of kind of hard evidence that could be used to prove that Boris Johnson was aware that what he was saying wasn't true. I think it's all quite dependent on which WhatsApp groups do you manage to get hold of, and do they involve groups that the Prime Minister was a member of.
Yeah, I'm sure the inquiry will continue. We shall see what the significance of people not being able to maintain anonymity has on it. Let us just got time to have a look at the Express, and the question that they're asking directly to Prince Harry is he coming for the coronation? What do we think, Anita?
Who knows? I mean, clearly no one has been told, and there is this lingering concern about whether the sort of saga of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex is going to overshadow the coronation. I must confess, I can't quite see how it would, given it's
Well, the
thing that's
Express,
not happened.
sorry to cut you, but the Express is saying that they both will soon be invited, but a quick decision is wanted on whether or not they will attend. But so it seems as if they will be invited.
Yes, so what I'm saying is that if they did attend, it's hard to imagine that they would actually overshadow an event that hasn't happened in several decades in the UK. So I think that it feels like a bit of a story about relatively nothing. I honestly would be quite surprised if they did come for the coronation, because it would result in a lot of a media frenzy and a lot of unnecessary drama.
Anita, thank you very much.